5:06 on this Friday in the nation's capital, and we are so honored to be a part of your beautiful weekend that's about to begin. So let's get it started the right way. It's O'Connor and Company, America's morning show. Larry O'Connor alongside Patrice Onwuka. Say it, Patrice. We've all been waiting for it.
Happy Friday!
There it is. Happy Friday. That was almost Oprah-like with your enthusiasm.
I know. I just feel it this morning. I don't know.
Let's just keep that at the limit of the Oprah comparisons.
Okay.
All right. Unless you've got Meghan Markle waiting in the wings for an exclusive interview, then go do your Oprah thing.
Then I can do Oprah. Okay. Right. Okay. I'll work on it.
Coming up at 7:05, Jacqueline Woodbridge from Transurban. Talk about VDOT opening the brand new 95 express lanes. It's happening. It's happening. No more driving by wistfully thinking, oh, if only those lanes were open. And then at 7:35, former Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich. 8:05, Rob O'Donnell, former NYPD detective, plenty to talk to him about the issues with cops and D.C. crime. And then at 8:35, our pal Byron York, Washington Examiner, because there's a lot to talk to him about. With his latest development, Joe Biden, as Vice President of the United States, had a pseudonym. He had a fake name that he would use for official correspondence on government email servers. And, of course, one has a pseudonym when one works in the government, especially when one works in the executive branch, if one wishes to avoid FOIA requests for one's correspondence and emails. And it turns out many of those correspondences, many of those emails apparently included a little CC to his son, Hunter, and Hunter's business partner, Devin Archer. Now, I'm sure, Patrice, that Joe Biden wanted to use a fake name to avoid any FOIA requests just so he could talk about the weather with his son. I'm sure that's all this is about. We should just look the other way.
Well, no. I mean, it was because he was helping Hunter set up dating profiles, and maybe he had one of his own. Then he wanted to show Hunter what it could look like. I mean, there are lots of credible reasons why the vice president at the time would have had a pseudonym.
Are there? I can't think of any.
Well, I'm grasping at straws. I'm trying to help him out here. I mean, maybe he didn't want to get a lot of, I don't know, other than some nefarious reasons, like he is trying to dodge accountability for wrongdoing.
It's sure is shady. It sure is shifty. And here, if you want to know, whether this is damaging to the president, let's give you. We've grabbed audio of the full coverage that MSNBC had on this story. Here, let's listen. Oh yeah, they didn't cover it. They completely ignored it. Sorry. That's the extent of the audio. They want this to go away.
This is too juicy to ignore. I mean, imagine if President Trump had a pseudonym that he was using to email back and forth with Vladimir Putin. I mean, can you imagine how the cable news would have blown up over this?
First of all, you've got me stuck now because I'm just imagining what Donald Trump's pseudonym would be. What would be his fake name?
Oh, man. It would be like Captain America. Like, that would be his pseudonym.
Captain America. Think of the fake names that we've had in our lifetime so far, just in the last decade, because of we had Pierre Delecto, of course.
Pierre Delecto, who was
that? Was Mitt Romney's pseudonym. He used that to sort of engage on Twitter without people knowing who it was. And then, of course, Carlos Danger, the infamous fake name used by Anthony Weiner for incredibly nefarious. Well, listen, if my name were Tony Weiner, I would want a fake name too. Okay, I think that's fair.
Yeah, I mean,
especially when I'm engaging in those kinds of behaviors.
That you don't want your wife to find out about, right?
Here are the details. Representative James Comer, chairman of the Oversight Committee, put out a letter yesterday afternoon demanding that the archive provide records pertaining to any email sent or received during the Obama administration coming out of the executive office with the name Robert L. Peters. By the way, adding the middle initial, nice touch. Most people, when they come up with their fake name, they don't think of the middle name. They don't think of the middle initial. This is a professional here. So apparently Bobby Peters, when working for Obama, would use this email address to schedule various events, including an email on May 26, 2016. Now, this is in the final year of the Obama presidency. This is when Joe had already announced that he's not running for president. This is the time to cash in. This is the time to make your money for your retirement. And there was a scheduling email on May 26, 2016, pertaining to a phone call with the president of Ukraine. The email address also appears 27 times on Hunter Biden's laptop.
Whoa.
But back to this May 26th email, one must wonder if one is the vice president of the United States and has been engaged by the president, let's not forget that would be Barack Obama at the time, if one is engaged by the president to handle and be the point person on our policy in Ukraine, then when one is scheduling a phone call with the president of Ukraine, why would one use a fake name? That's a pretty legitimate question that I would think any curious reporter in this town would want an answer to.
Well, I mean, yes. When you're dealing with, lower level staffers, maybe there's, someone, I could understand, not necessarily, maybe not understand. There might be a reason why he would use a pseudonym, sorry. But when you're dealing with the president of another country, that's an entirely different, you want that to be as official as possible, unless you're doing some sort of back channeling. By the way, that was not the only pseudonym that Biden used. Apparently,
what are the other ones?
Robin Ware. So maybe taken from his middle name, Robinette. So Robin Ware. Robert L. Peters. So he liked the L and he liked Peters. And then J.R.B. Ware, with Ware in lowercase Ware.
I wonder what Ware is all. W-A-R-E.
That's a good question.
J.R.B. Oh,
J.R.B.
Well, J.R.B. is Joseph Robinette Biden.
Ware.
But what's the Ware?
Good question. W-A-R-E. Yeah.
So
he was using this with these pseudonyms with both official and family business. So mixing the two together.
Well, and we know what family business was. Family business was selling access and making money off of foreign governments who have nefarious intent with the United States and other countries. But here's the question. Now, so you're Karine Jean-Pierre, and you're doing your press briefing today. And an erstwhile reporter, raises their hand and says, "Excuse me, but it's now been reported that President Biden, when he was vice president, used a pseudonym for official emails. Is that true? Can you confirm that? And can you explain why that would be?" She can't. She can't legitimately say, "Oh, I refer that question to the Justice Department. I refer that question." She can't refer that question to anyone. And if she says that has to do with the president's ongoing, investigation or something, then she is confirming that this was for nefarious reasons. There is no weaseling out of this. And the comms department at the White House, basically, they're coming up. The question that you just asked, why would he do? They're coming up with that answer now, and it's going to be laughable. It'll be amazing to find out what that answer is.
Well, and here's the funny part. I mean, everyone is going to leave her out to dry on this. Obviously, her boss is not going to answer that question. So it will be interesting to see if she she will probably just ignore the question and say next. And if that's the case, I hope more reporters keep asking the same questions.
Then we should have
hammer
them.
On.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right. We've got more on this as the morning goes on, including a conversation with Byron York at 8:35. An amazing development as the walls continue to close in on the Biden presidency. And by the way, I'll leave you with this. What did Obama know? And when did he know it? Because this all happened on his watch.
Under his watch. And some of his officials, too.
Yesterday, Patrice, we shared the story of the two key figures in Hawaii who appear to have dropped the ball during those horrific fires. The first is the emergency management person who's in charge of made the decision not to put the sirens on, which, if you're ever going to use your emergency sirens, I would think this would be the moment. And then the person who was in charge of water, who was specifically asked, when it looked like the fire had been contained and the reservoirs had been reduced significantly, this person was asked to allow streams and rivers to be diverted to refill those reservoirs. So firefighters, should the winds bring the fire back up, those reservoirs could be refilled and the water could be used to put out the fire. And he never responded. He never gave an answer. He never said yes or no. He wouldn't give permission. And then this interview that this water management person gave about a year ago was discovered. Here, this is the guy who was in charge of water and how he approached water.
And so I think where it shifted to today or over time is that we've become used to looking at water as like something which we use and not necessarily something that we revere as that thing that gives us life, right? I mean, to me, it's a shift in value set. And, you know, if we can start to really look at how we as humans in an island can reconnect to that traditional value set. So really my motto is always like, let water connect us and not divide us. Like we can share it, but it requires true conversations about equity.
Yeah. So when he was asked about diverting the rivers to the reservoir so the water could be used to put out the fire, he was out there doing a racial survey of the people who would be losing their homes to see if it was an equitable use of water as something that we share.
Anybody who says let water unite us, not divide us, like get out of here. Take
How
that
about
garbage
we use the
out
water
of
to
here.
put out fires?
Thank you.
We have over 100 deaths right now. Well, yesterday,
Yes.
Herman Andaya announced he was the emergency management official who determined not to put the sirens on. He resigned, and during the press
Good.
conference, got a little dicey.
You regret not sounding the sirens.
I do not. And the reason why, and
So many people said they could have been saved if they had time to escape. Had a siren gone off, they would have known that there was a crisis emerging. And as we know, so many bodies were found in the ground.
Do you want him to give you the answer, or do you want to give? Well, then let him finish. Let him finish his answer.
Sorry, there's a lot of people.
Well, you're talking and you're not letting him talk. If you want to talk, come up here.
You know, later we'll let you hear what his answer was, but just you can tell by his attitude exactly what's going on there, Patrice.
Yeah, obviously. So this guy who resigned, we're finding out a lot about him right now, namely that he did not have a background whatsoever in disaster preparedness. His qualifications seem to have been that he was chief of staff to the then mayor of the area, and so. You know, he did some trainings, he said. He participated in FEMA trainings in the past and some workshops throughout the years. And he apparently even beat out 40 other applicants for the job. I'm guessing now a lot of Hawaiians would have preferred to have any of the other 40 rather than this guy.
Yeah, he was a political hack, and he behaved like a political hack. The other person in charge of the water was a woke, equity-obsessed racialist, and he behaved that way as well. And the next thing you know, you've got a disaster on your hands. It's 5:21. And as we know, Bidenomics is working, Patrice Onwuka. Boy, is it ever. Bidenomics. Or how did he put it
We
yesterday?
just don't
I remember.
want it.
This is how it's working.
We just don't want them.
The menacing, creepy whisper of Peter L. What was his name again? Robert L. Peters?
Robert L. Peters, yeah.
Yeah, Robert L. Peters, the creepy whisperer that he loves to bring to the table.
The Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal initially called my plan Bidenomics. I'm not sure they meant it in a totally complimentary way at the time. But guess what? It's working.
Well, Patrice, what's the latest here on how Bidenomics is working? Because from the looks of it, if you're wanting to purchase a home, or God forbid you're a first-time homeowner, you are feeling the pain right now.
You absolutely are. So yesterday, Freddie Mac, the mortgage finance giant, just released a survey that found that 30-year fixed mortgages rose to 7.09%, or pretty much 7.1%. Pretty high. We haven't seen this number in decades, and that means that if you're trying to buy right now, you're going to be paying through the nose, probably 2 to 3 times what you were paying at the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, it's not just how high it is, but how precipitous it has climbed. 3 years ago, I bought my home, and my rate is just over 3%. And now it's it climbed 4 points.
Yeah.
In just 3 years. That is so drastic. And honestly, it's the only thing that's tampered down inflation a little bit. If the Fed hadn't been raising rates, so basically the pain is being shifted, whether it's inflation, purchasing things at the grocery store, or the inflation of mortgage rates. Either way, you're feeling the pain. They're just shifting it around.
Exactly. So, I mean, what's interesting is that a lot of housing experts would say, okay, well, if you really do need to buy or you want to buy, get into the market. And in a few years, ideally, the rates should start to come down. If inflation starts to moderate again a little bit, it's possible that the Fed will stop its aggressive rate hike strategy, and we'll see rates maybe drop to 6% by the end of the year. If the Fed continues and they're expected to hike rates again next month, then we could see mortgage rates hit 8% by the end of the year. So it's like a chicken and egg. Do you do it or do you not? And I would say maybe do it and then refinance in the future. The problem is a couple extra $100 each month in your monthly payment. That's eaten up by your higher gas prices right now. It's eaten up by inflation on all the other goods. So it's really difficult for families.
It's horrible for families, and it tells you exactly what you need to know when it comes to the state of the economy right now. And frankly, this is why you're seeing all of these there's a lot of reasons why you see the indictments against President Trump. One of them is because they want the subject to be Donald Trump and his alleged crimes. They don't want the subject to be things that most Americans would normally vote about, which is the economy and the state of their own bank accounts, the state of their own life, and everything that's happening right now. Because, it's working. Yeah, it's not working. All right, coming up, we've got unbelievable news about your Washington football team and the partnership they're very proud of. It involves your favorite light beer. Next. 5:36 on a very busy Friday morning. Patrice Onwuka and I are doing our best to refrain from using our pseudonyms throughout the day because we don't want to confuse anyone. But
and because we're not selling access to, the United States. And
what vice president hasn't used a fake name with correspondence? Because this is like Ben Franklin and Silence Dogood. Come on. Everybody cut Joe Biden a break on this. We got plenty of coverage of that and more at 7:05. Jacqueline Woodbridge from Transurban, who's partnered with VDOT on the extension of the brand new 95 express lanes. 7:35. Newt Gingrich. That sounds like a fake name.
Well, no.
No, who would make that
up a name like that? Right?
8:05, Rob O'Donnell, and then at 8:35, Byron York, who was all over the. I can't wait to talk to Byron about the fake name. That's all coming up. Let's turn back. Football season is. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. College football starts a week from this weekend. I will be there for the opening game. The first game of the season for college football is Navy versus Notre Dame.
All right, that's going to be a good game.
It's always a good game. And then to make it even better, it's going to be in Dublin, Ireland.
So, wow.
A bunch of Fighting Irish fans and Navy fans getting drunk with all the football hooligans in Ireland, watching America's game.
They like football, American football in Ireland?
They like beer.
I thought they like rugby.
Yeah, that's true. And they also have a game called hurling in Ireland. I've been doing a lot of deep dive research on all this stuff.
Okay.
They also love the Navy. The Navy was founded by a bunch of drunken Irish and Scottish sailors. So this is great. Right? It's going to be a great game. Okay. And then the week after that is the opening day of the NFL. And your Washington Commanders will be starting a brand new era with brand new ownership.
Okay, fresh start.
With a fresh start. I got to tell you, in their first preseason game, Sam Howell looked great. The team looked great. They won. And I have been in this town for over a dozen years now, and I've never seen more goodwill at the beginning of a football season than the Commanders and the new ownership have engendered. There's the media is on their side. They love them. Everything is great. Everything's perfect. They can do no wrong. And then, yesterday, they announced their partnership with their official beer.
Hi. Impressive carrying skills, right? I got some Bud Lights for us. So, I kept hearing about this thing called March Madness, and I thought we were all just having a hectic month, but it turns out it has something to do with sports.
That's right. Your Washington Commanders proudly announced to the entire world that they have officially re-upped and aligned their brand with literally the most toxic brand in America. And they're bragging about it. It's like just when you thought you were like, okay, fine, I'll give this team another chance. And then they do this to you.
Who is their advisor? Who in the world told them that you should, if you want to be number one, you got to go to the company that was number one and is now number 2 or 3 or 4? Why? Because they are so woke that they have turned off a huge part of their customer base. That is who you want to align with, because that's going to take you to the top.
Well, I have a few answers for you. There's a couple of answers to this. Again, I just think, I don't know why they had to make such a big splashy deal. They put out this big Twitter video. It's like, do you have any idea what kind of reaction you're going to get, guys? Obviously, this was a financial consideration. This is a business deal that they struck. Also, one of the minority partners in the new ownership group for the Commanders also happens to be the chairman of Anheuser-Busch, which owns all of the Bud brand beers.
Gotcha.
And also, this is not exclusive to the Commanders. There are actually now 27 different NFL franchises going into this season that have partnerships and sponsorships with Bud Light. I mean, to be fair, up until the Dylan Mulvaney thing, Bud Light was literally the most popular, best-selling beer in America. So, it's not like you can untangle those sponsorships and relationships. When you go to Nats Park right now, I think they still have Bud Light Plaza there in the outfield, don't they? Do they still have Bud Light Plaza at Nats Park? Yeah, absolutely they do. And so, I mean, it's going to be, it's not like you can just, sever these relationships. But the fact that the Commanders are now making such a big deal, bragging about how they've re-upped their deal, it's like, okay, you can reevaluate it. But if your minority partner is the owner of Bud, what are you going to do? What are you going to do?
Well, that's probably the quandary they find themselves in. I'm just looking at the video on the social media feed right now, and it's you see a couple of fans holding the Bud Light can a couple of times. It's mostly just the Commanders players dancing and prancing at the scores, the touchdown. Sorry, but listen. Still, someone should have said, okay, we're going into this multi-deal, and they decided to re-up it, right? So at least let's play it cool. Let's kind of downplay it until we can see how the fans are buying. Let's see if they're going to be taking their protests here, and then if not, then maybe next year or later in the season. Yeah.
If you're wondering, of the non Bud Light sponsored NFL teams, you've got the Green Bay Packers, of course, because, well, that's Miller country there in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Green Bay, Wisconsin. So they're sponsored by Miller Lite. And then you got your Chicago Bears, which is right there in the neighborhood as well. Minnesota Vikings, which is also sort of in the vicinity of Miller. So Miller's got a big footprint up there in the Midwest. And the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, well, there you go. That explains it.
If you want to root for a team that doesn't have sponsorships with Bud Light, you could always root for the
Patriots.
Oh, God, the Dallas. No, the Patriots have it too.
Are they?
The Cowboys.
They have it too?
Your only choice is the Cowboys?
Really?
This is so depressing. Like I said, really excited about the start of college football. It's 5:43. Disconcerting news out of our Justice Department, or out of the Joe Biden, Merrick Garland Justice Department. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the architect of the 9/11 attacks, as well as 4 other accused co-defendants who have been detained in Guantanamo Bay, Cuba for, 2 decades now. It has been announced to many of the families of the 3,000 victims of the 9/11 attacks that it could very well be that KSM and those 4 terrorist murderers will end up with a plea deal.
Wow.
Without any kind of final resolution. They will not actually face any sort of verdict from a court, and they will avoid the death penalty with these agreements. This is after more than a decade of legal battles involving the FBI, the Pentagon, and the CIA. And it looks like this Justice Department is surrendering to the terrorists and to their lawyers. The families are none too pleased about this.
Another reason to wonder about justice in the United States, particularly in this department, this Justice Department. I mean, the fact that you're going to tell people who lost whose family members were murdered by terrorists, real terrorists that still exist, that, oh, the death, at this point, the death penalty is off the table. There may never be a finalization to any kind of punishment that these guys could face. Frankly, I would think that it would embolden other terrorists to consider other ways that they can carry out their murderous plans against Americans. Yeah. And it tells the families, you really don't matter. Your family members really don't matter.
Yeah, I think that that's a fair assessment here. And, I remember the days after 9/11, and never forget, never forget, never forget was something that we all repeated. And now,
that's been forgotten.
Biden administration wants you to forget it. Yeah, they want it to go away. They just want to clean this mess up, I guess. It's being described as a sweetheart deal, which I guess is what this administration does through the Justice Department. They do sweetheart deals for suspects that are inconvenient for them politically. And a family, like I said, the families have been notified about this. They got a letter August 1st asking them to reply with their reactions. This came from the FBI's Office of Victim Services. They were supposed to reply with any questions or comments about a possible plea deal. I'm suspecting that the comments and questions were rather emotional, frankly, learning that the person who orchestrated this entire thing is now going to escape the death penalty. And by the way, just to go back in time, I remember when President Bush at the time was lampooned and mocked and criticized for saying that we're going to get these people dead or alive. And, the two most responsible figures for the 9/11 attacks were Osama bin Laden and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And under immense pressure from the political left and Democrats in this country, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was arrested instead of killed in a raid.
Yes.
And now we see what happened. Osama bin Laden, he was killed in a military raid. He was killed on sight, no questions asked. And when it comes to justice for something like this, I hesitate to say that I think that's obviously the better way to go, rather than going through great pains to detain somebody and then allow them to have their day in court, because this is what that day in court looks like.
Well, and the sad part is that this is the difference between administrations. When the leadership changes and their perspective on things like the death penalty, treatment of terrorists, people who belong to classes, racial or ethnic classes that they kind of want to protect for some, who have done wrong, that this is the outcome of that. And it's sad because I believe under President Trump and even under President Bush, there was that emphasis on trying to prosecute these guys. And even under President Obama, who wanted to prosecute them in New York, if I remember correctly. And there was immense pressure, pushback against prosecuting them in New York.
That was Eric Holder's bright idea. Yeah, let's try him blocks away from ground zero.
I guess to send a message, but I just can't understand why
message is being sent. That's for sure.
Why a plea deal though would be accepted here, and they get to live out the rest of their life in U.S. custody. To me, that's not punishment. Go send them to a jail in another country where bread is a luxury, where a mattress is a dream. That's the kind of punishment that they deserve.
Coming up at 8:05,
at best.
We had already booked Rob O'Donnell to talk about developments in law enforcement issues and crime here in D.C. and other stories because it's such a major issue. But it turns out Rob O'Donnell, of course, famously was there on ground zero on 9/11. He lost many brothers in the New York Police Department that day. And at 8:05, we'll get Rob O'Donnell's direct reaction to this development.